Yep.
So, Kenneth and Keith, the Lucas brothers. First off, congratulations. Judas and the Black Messiah is, I would call it an agonizingly great movie.
That seems right. That seems right.
Because it's great, but it's also like infuriating and frustrating to be reminded of like how much the FBI and powerful interests get in the way of progress.
Oh yeah, it's a long history, man. It's a long history.
Yeah. Since my podcast is called Last Things First, I want to start with this is not a spoiler, but one of the last things in the movie is Bill O'Neill talking about the fact that at least he wasn't an armchair revolutionary. And that strikes me like it hits so much harder now that we have social media than it did 20, 30, 40 years ago.
Right. Yeah, I mean, there are a lot of armchair revolutionaries now. It seems as if everybody has an opinion about everything, and some people like to proclaim that they're radical and they're fighting against the system, and I think some people truly believe it. But it's hard to tell, man. But back then, they were literally putting their lives on the line, and there are some folks in the BLM circle that they've been targeted by the police. Some have been killed. So, it's still dangerous times for sure. But I think you have way more folks who are revolutionary online, but don't really put it into practice.
Without a doubt.
I know I've read that you guys first learned about Fred Hampton while you guys were in college.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm wondering the fact that those guys were, both Fred and Bill were just teenagers themselves. The idea that you were their age when you learned about him, how much did that have an even greater impact on your own lives?
Yeah, I mean, it was crazy because, I was in college. We were part of the student union, and we had aspirations of being lawyers. So when I'm reading about this young guy who had all of these sort of, dreams, and he was committed as an activist, and he wanted to uplift his community, but then I find out he dies this way. It's like, you can't help but like reflect on that as a young Black man at the time. Like, I was like, how crazy. Like, I couldn't see anything in his rhetoric, or I couldn't see anything in his activity to justify being executed like that. And so, yeah, I always thought about it heavily.
Yeah, same. When you hear about Hampton, and we were incredibly young at the time, and he was incredibly young, and he had done so much at such a young age. You're almost in awe. You're like, I'm the same age as this guy, but I'm not as committed to my principles like he is. And I understand why the state was afraid of him, but nevertheless, that doesn't justify assassination, certainly execution at your home. But he was such a powerful speaker, and I was just watching the video with Bobby Rush. He said he was a genius organizer, and I'm like, yeah, he was. He was a genius organizer, powerful orator, and he was able to accomplish so much at such a young age. I mean, yeah, just couldn't help but being awe.
Yeah, the idea that he was killed when he was still only 21.
A kid.
Right.
But he was looked at as this massive threat by J. Edgar Hoover and the white power structure. It's like, I think about what I was doing at 21. I was not a threat to anybody.
Me either. I couldn't imagine like the state coming after me at the age of 21. I'm like, for doing what? Like saying some shit. Like I said a lot of shit when I was 21. I don't know. It just seems like
we also have
situation.
We have to remember that J. Edgar Hoover was a madman. And he had a militant racist fear of African Americans, and that played a role in how he shaped the FBI and how he shaped policy toward targeting African Americans. And obviously, it wasn't just African Americans; pretty much anyone on the left. But Hoover was a madman, and for some odd reason, America has a tendency to reward psychopaths. It's a long history of rewarding psychopaths. It's like
he never got elected. He never got elected.
I said rewarding. I just said rewarding. I didn't say voting in. Just rewarding psychopaths.
I guess I should mention for our listeners that as we talk, we just found out a couple hours ago that Rush Limbaugh died. So, So
Yeah.
talk
What a bummer.
talk about rewarding hate and
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I don't like to disrespect the dead. I'm not going to go that route, but I'm just like, you know, I don't think he was great for America. I mean, I know there's another part of the country that really believes he was great for it, but there's another half that's just like, ugh, he was.
But we're not here to talk about Rush. We're here to talk
Right.
about you guys.
Right.
So let me quickly get it back on track.
That's a good pivot.
The moment when you guys decided separately yet together to drop out of law school, was there a direct epiphany that made that happen, or was that a gradual disinterest in full?
Kenny?
I would say it was sort of a. I mean, I arrived at it a little sooner, but I think we've both been having sort of reservations about pursuing a legal career as a long-term strategy for amassing wealth. I think I think we both sort of realized that we had larger ambitions. We both had like a creative impulse that we had to, you know, that we had to examine, and I think we kind of arrived at that sort of feeling simultaneous.
Yeah, I mean, when he first presented the idea, I thought he was losing his mind. It didn't make any sense to me. I was like, this dude's crazy. Like, I was very committed to becoming a lawyer, and I was definitely more convinced than he was. I was probably more of a capitalist, and yeah, I really wanted it, but he did a good job of convincing me that it wasn't the right way to go. There's more you can do with your voice, I think, as a comedian, and you know, there are positions that I have that I think I wanted to explore as well. So, you know, doing it through comedy was just seemed like the right way to go.
So Kenny made a strong prosecutorial argument then.
Oh yeah.
Right.
He laid out all the facts. He laid out all the evidence, and he convinced me.
I was saying my legal education coupled with my background in philosophy put me in a position to convince him why he should make the
I was highly skeptical. I know,
deeply.
It took me a couple of weeks to just wrap my head around it, but ultimately it was the right choice.
The jury came back with a unanimous opinion. Verdict. Was it a direct path then from law to comedy, or were there some detours?
Well, when we were first thinking about dropping out, I know Kenny was doing a little bit of stand-up. I mean, not like a ton, but he was getting up every now and then. And, you know, I gotten up maybe once in Durham, and we were doing it sort of, you know, lazily. And when I got back to Jersey after leaving Duke, I was we were like, oh, maybe we should do screenwriting instead. Maybe that's more up our alley, because, you know, we've always been kind of introverted and not really the best public speakers. So stand up to me, it was just tough to it was hard for me to wrap my brain on what do you do? Because I'm like, my favorite stand-up comedians are people like Chappelle and Eddie Murphy, and these guys seem just like supernaturally gifted at comedy, and I had never seen myself like that. I always saw myself as a bit more analytical. So not to say that they're not analytical, but more introverted. And so we were thinking about doing screenwriting instead. We went to Barnes and Noble, bought this screenwriting book, and we had it, and it was like the principles of screenwriting. And we read it, and we were like, this seems a little bit more nebulous than the stand-up path. So we went back to stand-up. But we never we never completely gave up our dreams of being screenwriters. So we just thought like stand-up made a little bit more sense.
Yeah, but as we're doing stand-up, we had to find like a bunch of odd jobs. You know, the story. So we had to work for like a cable company. We worked for a hospital. We worked for what else did we work for? We had unemployment.
Right. But we got fired from all those jobs. Like every single job that we worked post law school, we got fired from for whatever reason.
Right, was the only job we've never been fired from.
Stand-up, yeah.
What was the last day job you guys had?
We were working at this hospital. Our mom got us a job, like, you know, she had to like talk to someone to get us this job. It's basically like clerical work. And you know, we asked them to sort of stagger our schedule so that we can still do stand up. But because we didn't, I don't know, we asked them if we could do it at the same time so that we can do.
We're like, look, we know you guys have patience. Some of them die every once in a while, but we're gonna really need to schedule in a way that allows for us to do free shows in New York City.
Right.
And yeah, I know you guys are paying us, but don't worry about that. We're gonna be big time at some point. We promise.
We don't plan on being here too long, so could you just please just work with us? So we were asking them to keep us together, but they would always stagger an hour, so we weren't able to do stand up. So there's one time they had put Kenny on for like two. How many did they put you on for?
2 hours.
More hours than you should have done. So I was like, I'll come in for you for a couple hours.
Right.
You go back. So we can just switch hours, and someone fucking snitched on us, and then we got fired.
Oh.
And that's what motivated us to write Judas and the Black Messiah. We got snitched on by some old white lady, and we were like, we gotta make a story about this.
You know, I know you guys have been thinking about this project for a lot longer than most people realize. I'm wondering, like, when you saw a comedian like John Ridley win an Academy Award for 12 Years a Slave, like, how much did that like influence or inspire you to go, oh yeah, like, even though we're comedians at heart, we can do something serious and we can get legitimate attention?
Oh yeah, I mean, John Ridley he has been a huge influence just in terms of how he structured his career. I mean, he left stand-up completely, and I don't think I would ever do that, but I do like how he was able to carve out a great career as a writer. And that just signaled to me, like, as a stand-up, there are a lot of things we can do. I mean, I think that stand-ups are some of the brightest people in the industry, just in terms of our ability to write and our ability to analyze, our ability to stand on stage and deliver a joke. I mean, it's tough. So, you know, I think when we saw Ridley doing it and he won the Oscar, and, you know, he's just carved out a great career as a writer, I think that certainly had an influence on us. Also, like Tom McCarthy, he kind of did a little bit of stand-up. Obviously, Jordan Peele. A couple of people who are just like prominent comedians who were able to make that transition.
Right, because, you know, you're making pitches to studios, and, you know, they might see you as only like, oh, these two stoner stand-ups who do a brother act.
And it wouldn't be wrong.
or they're like, oh yeah, we watched your Netflix special, or, you know, you guys do, you know, you had the late night animation block with Fox. So it's like, how do you get them to see you in a different light?
Yeah, I think you got to start, like, when you go to a pitch, you just start by quoting Malcolm X. Like, you just got to go in straight militant. I don't know. Like, yeah, I get it. Like, if you've seen our work, your first thought isn't going to be like a biopic about, or not even a biopic, but a historical thriller about COINTELPRO that involves, that a central plot point involves the assassination of a person. I mean, you're not going to think that. So you have to get through to, you have to sort of figure out a way to comb through that institutional bias and you know, put the pieces together and work with people who can get you over the hump. I mean,
right. I think linking up with filmmakers who had a better understanding of how to get these things done, I think that was crucial. I mean, you know, you have to, I think in this industry, you know, especially if you want to do anything, you know, you have to know how to collaborate. And I think, you know, when we first went out with just me and my brother. We didn't really understand the nuances of, you know, pitching and selling a pitch or anything like that. So we were struggling. And I think, being able to link up with someone like Shaka, who was able to link up with someone like Coogler, who was able to link up with someone like Charles King, it's almost like you have to collaborate because you never know how doors are going to be unlocked. And I think that was crucial to getting this project made. Just, you know, opening up our arms essentially, and like reaching out to people and not having an ego about the process. You know what I mean? Just making sure we see it through. And now we're here.
One of the things watching Judas and the Black Messiah, and I hope this doesn't come across as a spoiler to anybody who hasn't yet seen it, but I was so delighted and pleased to see Lil Rel and Jermaine not only both have parts in it, but like there's just both great in the scenes that they're in. They're just they're just fabulous in it.
Right, they're amazing actors. I mean, we got to watch them for 2 years straight, just doing these weird, silly sketches, and we knew then and there that like they had next level talent, and obviously Rel proved it with Get Out, and Jermaine's been proving it with Sorry to Bother You, and he's going to prove it and Coming to America. They're just exceptionally gifted actors.
Right.
Yeah, for those of you who don't know, the Lucas brothers, Jermaine Fowler, Lil Rel Howery, were all part of a sketch group that was on truTV called Friends of the People.
Yeah, baby.
With the late great Kevin Barnett.
Yeah.
Right.
He was a co-head writer with Josh Rabinowitz, and we had Jim Bartels as well. It was a crazy sketch show. Crazy sketch
Right.
show.
So did those guys audition separately, or
It's actually kind of crazy. So Jermaine, Jermaine was crucial in terms of the development of the story getting made. He knew Will Burson, who's the other screenwriter on the script, and he obviously knew us, but he knew Shaka as well. And he knew we were all working on separate projects, so he made the connection between us and Burson, and that was another crucial step that needed to happen to get this film made, because Burson had his own script already written. It was about Fred Hampton. It was brilliant. It was great. And when we read his script, we were like, oh man, we should just synthesize the two projects. You know what I mean? Right. And it's just, it's trying to get a Fred Hampton movie made is nearly impossible. So you need to make sure you present the best possible script, and Burson just put us over the edge. So Jermaine he was responsible for that, and so I think Shaka auditioned. He auditioned Jermaine. I think he auditioned Rel as well. So they auditioned for it, but I think we kind of owe Jermaine, really, because without Jermaine, this project wouldn't be where it is. So, but Rel, I think he wanted to be in the movie because he's from Chicago. He might be the most authentically Chicago dude in the film. And he wanted to be on it, so he called up Coogler, and Coogler made it happen.
Yeah, I don't even know if Rel is a real person in the story, but his role is fantastic.
Right. He's one of my favorites. He's a diabolical character, and his decision or his poison leads to the death of Fred. But Rel as a FBI pimp is just if you don't know anything else about Judas and the Black Messiah, and you were to hear like, oh, Rel's playing an FBI pimp in this movie, you're like, oh man, that's kind of hilarious.
Yeah, it does bring some much needed comedy to the.
But that's the thing. That's what I think is so brilliant about the casting. It's like you see Lil Rel, and you're like, all right, he's gonna at least be funny. We've gone through all of this all of this trauma throughout this film, and now we have this one person who can just make us laugh, and then there's a twist to it. I think that was just a brilliant call by Shaka.
Did I blink and miss it, or was Josh not a corrupt FBI agent?
Well, we wanted Josh to play Fred Hampton, but everyone was so big on Kaluuya. I was like, all right, whatever.
Yeah, Warner Bros. They didn't think that a white Jewish guy would have done a great job as Fred Hampton. So I understand their logic.
I mean, Josh is small in stature, but now I want to see and hear him do the "I'm a Revolutionary."
Man, we were on set when fucking Kaluuya did that speech, man.
Oh my god!
I mean, obviously when people watch it on screen, they get chills. But imagine being there among all those people, watching this guy just deliver a fiery speech as Fred Hampton. I mean, it was exhilarating, man. Like, it's like I'd never seen that level of acting before, where someone was just fully immersed into the character. It was just a brilliant performance.
Yeah, I would have followed Kaluuya into battle.
Absolutely, absolutely. I would do anything for Kaluuya just off that speech alone.
And of course, you mentioned the late great Kevin Barnett. Would you have imagined a role for him in this?
What's crazy? What was that thing that Rami just sent us?
Rami sent us he sent us a voice message. He was like, us lying to Kevin saying that he got cast as Fred Hampton and saying he beat Daniel Kaluuya.
Like, we just keep pushing it. Just like, you know, it's really close between you and Kaluuya, man. It's like neck and neck. I think that would be funny. But no, I mean, yeah, fucking Kevin, man. Yeah, I think he could have done something, man. He had the perfect hair for late 60s.
He had 1960s civil rights hair, so he would have been perfect.
Well, you know, Rami Youssef, you know, Golden Globe winning Rami Youssef.
Yes.
He did manage to get Kev into one of his episodes.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
With Mia Khalifa, even.
Yeah, that was brilliant.
Yeah.
He showed us that. I was like, I almost came to tears. I'm like, this is exactly what Kevin wants to be right now.
You know, I'll ask because you did write about this so sincerely and brilliantly for an essay in Vulture, New York Magazine, in June of 2020. You talked about like mental health and PTSD and substance abuse issues. How did Kevin's death affect you guys?
Heavy, man. It was heavy. Like when we first found out, I was fucked up, man. I was still drinking at the time, so I went hard. Like, I had like a bender. I was in a daze. Like, just everything felt dark, man. Like, it was one of the darkest periods of my life. And I'm still like working through it. Like, it's going to be like one of those things where whenever I get close to Kevin's the day of his death, I get like kind of antsy and sort of uncomfortable. But yeah, it impacted me pretty hardcore. But I think it also motivated me to give up booze. Like, I was like, I don't want to do that anymore. So it was a gift and a curse. Obviously more curse than a gift, but yeah.
Yeah, still fucked up by it. But, you know, obviously when it first happened, it was just, you're just like, it's like one of those things that you just can't truly believe. You know, it was like I was in a daze and I was shocked. I was just like, I can't believe. It's just you hear those words and you're just like, no way that's true. He's doing a prank. Because we had just seen him. We had just seen him a week ago. It was me, Kenny, Lana Glazer, Josh, and we went to this Thai restaurant on Sunset, and we were just, you know, it was like old times, and when we were in New York waiting to do an open mic, and it was just like, you know, we were just reminiscing about the good old days, and fucking Matthew Weiner from Mad Men stopped by, and like it was such a surreal night, and I didn't think that would be my last night with him. It was just like we were just having a good time and laughing like we always do, and if I had known it was going to be our last night, obviously I would have certainly stayed out a little longer. But it was just like, it's one of those things where you just don't expect that to be the last night. You just, and then in an instant it's over. It's like, oh, I'll never hang out with that guy again. I'll never hear a joke or a story or anything like that. And we could use him right now. Like, he was the funniest one among us. So, you know, he was the funniest one among us. I think everyone would admit that. Yeah, I'm talking about we have a group text called the Golden Lords, and there's a bunch of like comedians, and Kevin was, you know, one of the best. I mean, just a truly brilliant, gifted joke writer and storyteller. And yeah, it was like, when you lose someone like that, it's like you're not just losing a brother, but you're losing someone who has just made your life better. So it's just, it was tough. It was tough. Still tough. But
yeah, he was so kind and lighthearted, and the times that I interacted with him, like, I was always amazed at how much fun he had at his own expense. Like, joking about
very self-deprecating.
Joking about bombing. Then he would go on stage, and then he would come back off stage and joke about bombing. It's like
he was the master.
He made me love the art of the bomb.
It's an art.
I feel like you learn so much more in the bomb than you do in the crush. It's like, okay, now it's like now I know what struggle is.
And, I mean, that was a genius of Kevin, man. Like, he could turn something that's so a comedian's worst fear, and he turns it into the funniest joke that you can think of. It's like that's a superpower right there. He had an ability to make anything funny. He's just one of the greats, man. He's truly one of the greats.
How did his death, and like recognizing your own mortality, how did that like influence the direction you guys wanted to move in with the projects you work on? Did it change that at all in terms of like?
Yeah, I mean, there was a period right after 2016 up until probably 2020 when it was just like a sort of a period of darkness. Like there was a struggle with addiction and drinking. There was, just like professional issues, and like Keith and I were sort of like going through our own struggles, and then like and then Kevin sort of dies. And as we're doing all this, we're going through the process of Judas. And so it's like you're having to deal with this very sort of tragic subject material while you're watching Fred's family process grief. And then you're like in the process of processing your own grief. And it's like it's just sort of this sort of weird synergy that sort of like you're kind of lifting each other up. Like I'm seeing how strong Fred Hampton's girlfriend, Mother Akua, and his son, I'm seeing how strong they are in their process of grief. And I'm like, it challenged me to be even more, strong in my grief. So now when I'm approaching my art, I try to take everything into consideration. Like I'm not trying to be either too whimsical or I'm not trying to be too sad. I just want to feel the full range of emotions.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. No, I think you stated it perfectly. I mean, it's like, yeah. I mean, you're gonna feel things, but yeah, you want to feel everything because I think it all influences the art. I think it makes the art a lot richer.
Right.
But ultimately, like it's tragic and it's still trauma and you still have to deal with it. But if you can channel it into something positive, then to me that's a good thing.
Yeah, right. Like it can't be the sole source of your therapy, but
right.
It is a part of your therapy, being able to express yourself in a way that touches on issues that impact you. I think it's somewhat therapeutic.
I agree.
Right, in terms of the stories you want to tell, the stories you want to share.
Right.
So on that note, I don't want to shortchange the success you're currently enjoying with Judas and the Black Messiah because, you just got nominated for Writers Guild Awards. We're in the heat of awards season.
Yeah.
Who knows what's going to happen with the Oscars.
Right.
Knock on all the wood. But then you've also got 2 other projects you're currently working on, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right.
So
yeah, we're working on Reunited Nerds with Seth MacFarlane, and we're working on this movie with Lord and Miller from Lord and Miller. So we've just been trying to stay busy and keep our minds on the work because it's a crazy time right now.
Right.
It's like so much death, and especially we're still recovering from the Trump administration.
Right.
And it's just a very crazy time.
This has been like a I forget sometimes that Biden's in office. I'm like it's almost too boring. Like when Trump was in office, it's like it was something every day.
Every second. I don't check Biden's Twitter. I'm like, oh, he's gonna say something boring and it's not gonna be as crazy as the Trump years, and which is a good thing. I think we need stability in the office, and he's like a grandpa, man. I mean, I'm sure he's probably doing some nefarious shit too, but he's just not as bad as Trump at this point.
Well, that's what Biden promised, though. He promised to bring boring back.
I think that's a good thing.
Bring boring back better.
Bring boring back better. I like it.
America needs that shit, man.
And getting back to the kind of the first thing I brought up, Bill O'Neill talking about at least he wasn't an armchair revolutionary. Do you feel like being a comedian or screenwriter is a better way of achieving revolution than being in the law or being in politics? Or
I don't think so.
No.
I'm not gonna give myself that much credit. I think someone like Fred Hampton, a leader who was in the community on the ground, organizing, and that's the more effective way of bringing about change.
Yeah, you got to organize a revolution. You need money, you need leadership, you need arms.
And don't get me wrong, I think propaganda and art certainly plays a role, but I would not say that we play the most important role. I think that we play we play a role, obviously. Propaganda matters, but ultimately you need strong leadership. You need very strong leadership. And I don't know if stand-up comedians are. We just tell jokes all the time. It's like, oh, sometimes you got to get serious during revolution. Can't just be jokes. You know what I mean? So,
Well, Kenny and Keith, thank you so much for not only writing a great movie and co-producing a great movie, but taking some time out of your schedule to chat with me about it. I really appreciate it.
Of course. And also shout out to Will Burson and Shock King. They wrote the screenplay, and I just want to say shout out to all of the producers involved on the film, because it took a village to get it done. So
right.
Awesome. Thank you so
man.
much.